Hello everybody, welcome back to the Craft Beer Hub. I've got another beer review for you, and it is of this. Right, before we start, this is technically homebrew. You won't recognise the label, and that's because it's homebrew from Malta. Now, a little bit of a backstory to how I got hold of this beer. I was in the pop bottle shop out in Zura when I was speaking to Miguel. We'd done the video together. Go back in the video library. It's probably about 20 videos back now. And I was kind of chatting away with Miguel after we'd finished, and I had a few beers with him, actually getting pretty pissed, actually. And there was a chap that walked in. And obviously me and Miguel are talking. We've both had a couple of beers by that point, so we're talking over the bar. And this chap walks into the bottle shop, and he's having a look around at the beers. And he said to me, it was something like, "Are you English?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Which beers would you recommend?" Because there was a lot of English beers there on Miguel's shelf. There was some Four Pure, a lot of Magic Rock, some Vocation stuff. And I was there was some North stuff on there, so I was kind of saying, if you know, in the UK this beer is very well thought of, I probably wouldn't go with that one, and just kind of gave him my opinion. And I can't remember, something happened and Miguel said, "Do you know who the best brewer in Malta is," or something? I can't remember what he said exactly. I can't remember the actual what was exactly said. And he pointed to a chap called Kurt. And he was like, "This guy that you've been talking to is one of the best brewers in Malta." And it turns out I was speaking to a guy called Kurt Gafa. He's on Instagram. He follows me and I follow him. If you go through Instagram, you can find him. But basically, it turns out Kurt is on the brink of going commercial with his beer. He's very well thought of. I went to Lord Chambray. They knew Kurt Gafa. I spoke to someone else in the beer industry in Malta. They knew Kurt Gafa. So I think everyone was kind of waiting for Kurt to go commercial. Right, let's get this. Well, the style of the beer, sorry. It's a 5.7. It says Kurt Gafa there right at the bottom. The style of beer, it's a carob and black cardamom English bitter, and it's 5.7%, 35 IBUs. I took this out of the fridge about 10 minutes ago, so it's probably a lovely temperature now. It's homebrew, so who knows what's going to happen here. Let's get it, the bottle cap open. Yeah, I thought so. She's a fairly lively... Oh, no, she's not. No, it's all right. Let's get it in the glass. So yeah, basically turns out Kurt grows all his own hops. Comes up, oh my god, the smell of this beer. Wow. Grows all his own hops. And he's very well thought of in Malta in terms of brewing. This is an English bitter, so I'm not going to agitate everything at the bottom. And because it's homebrew, it's fairly lively. What have we got there? We've got a lovely, almost ruby red, very well carbonated, semi-hazy beer. We've got about a 95 finger off-white head. But that looks like a very good English bitter. Very good craft English bitter. Cardamom, black cardamom and carob. I'm not entirely sure what that's going to bring to the party. We'll have to see in a minute. But yeah, I thought it was quite cool. And it turned out that Miguel, the owner of the bottle shop, had a bottle of this behind his bar, and he was like, "Here, have some. Review it on the channel." So here we are. It looks fantastic in the glass. I've got the benefit of the ring light behind, and what you're not picking up on the camera is it's lovely kind of ruby red, deep, lovely sort of treacle-like, caramel-like colour on it. It looks absolutely lovely. Right, now the head's gone down, let's get our noses in, see what we get. Wow, it's lovely and herbal. That must be the black cardamom. It's almost got a minty menthol aroma to it, which is going to be the cardamom again. Dark fruits. Definitely getting a slight caramel off the darker malt that's been used in here. But overall, it smells really, really, really interesting. I think we've got to go in. Cheers, everybody. Oh, wow. 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 I'm going to go in again. That blew my mind. From the first moment, this beer it's up it's up behind you all the way, this beer. Lovely dark malt to start with. That caramel comes into play. Lovely and sweet straight from the off. The middle stage of this beer gets quite herbal. Like I say, that mentholy thing from the cardamom, it's in there. It's slightly minty. Then the back end of this beer, it's got a sort of semi-drying bitter finish. And there's a lovely taste of sort of a light, creamy chocolate. Right at the back. Lovely light body to it, very well carbonated on the tongue. It's got so much character, this beer. The first part of this beer is all about the malt. And then those additions come in with the cardamom and the carob. I believe carob does give chocolate, kind of light chocolate flavours and aromas. It's just that herbal. It's lovely and sweet to start with. It's a bit of a delight, actually, to start with. And very quickly, it's like, come on then. And it always starts on you with those really strong herbal flavours. Like I say, slightly minty, slightly menthol. And that gives way. And there is still that herbalness at the back of the beer. But that's where a nice, sort of semi-sweet, silky chocolate comes in. But it's right at the back. You really have to look for it. Obviously, I knew this beer had carob in it, so I was kind of waiting for the chocolate, and it does come in at the back. But overall, that's very, very, very drinkable. What did I say the ABV was? 5.7. That's hidden very well. And I think the sweetness hides it. The body hides it because it's very, very light, and the carbonation hides it. Because the carbonation and the body kind of make it feel fresh all the while, especially with those sweeter flavours from the malt to start with. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Very cool, in fact. I've never had a bitter like it. I believe the beer's called Cygnus. Like I say, brewed by Kurt Gafa. If you go on Instagram, search Kurt space Gafa. He's a brewer in Malta, and he's about to go commercial, from what I understand from the chats I had with him. And I think he'll do really well. That's a very, very interesting beer. And where it falls into the kind of Maltese... beer scope, I think this is the most out there beer that I've had from Malta. Lord Chambray have got a very good solid range. Lord Chambray have placed themselves so well. They were the first original craft brewer in Malta, and they've kind of got a good beer of every style. They've got one or two pales, one or two IPAs, but they've got a couple of stouts, but they've got a decent sour, they've got a decent wit beer, they've got a lovely dark lager or darker lager called Coral Cave. And where Kurt is going to fit into, and then you've got another brewery called Husky, then you've got Sisk and Fastens, they're the big ones that are everywhere. But in terms of craft brewers, you've got Lord Chambray and you've got Husky, and then there's a couple of small sort of brewer restaurants that aren't commercial yet. But what Kurt would bring to the Maltese beer industry, in my opinion, from what I saw, and I was only over there a week, but I did get my head really into it. What he will bring is, especially with beers like, if all of his beers like this, I don't know, I'd have to have another look at his Instagram to have a look up, see what he's brewing. But he's going to bring kind of what we've seen in the UK a few years ago, where brewers really started going out there with their styles, with their ABVs. They didn't... I mean, for instance, I think if someone like Lord Chambray brewed an English Best Bitter, it wouldn't necessarily have these sort of level of additions in it. It would be a very good Best Bitter because it's Lord Chambray. But what Kurt's going to do is kind of rip up the rule book. English Bitter doesn't have to be 3.7%. It can be 5.7. And I'm going to put black cardamom seeds in it and carob in it. And he's done a lovely job of this beer. It's one of the best home brews I've ever had in my life. If you said that to me, that was a commercial beer or a beer from a commercial brewer, I'd absolutely believe you. I think Kurt is the next step on the Maltese craft beer journey, and he's gonna. I think if he does beers like this all the time, I think he'll do well. because from what I understand, Malta's ready for the next step on the craft beer journey, and we've gone through it here in the UK. You kind of had those outlandish brewers. I mean, even to the extent of people like Vault City just brewing mental beers. I mean, you just wonder how they design a product. Vault City, they do very well, but you just wonder. But that's kind of there at this stage now in Malta. They've had the craft beer, they've had the good small brewed stuff, they've had the good small batch stuff. Now they're ready for some more interesting stuff, and I think that's where Kurt's going to fit in, and I think he'll do very well because this is a fantastic beer. Like I say, some of the best homebrew I've ever had. That is a solid 4.5 out of 5. Kurt, if you're watching, mate, I really wish you the best of luck in the world. It was an honour to meet you, and thank you for the beer through. Obviously, you gave it to Miguel, and it found its way to me. But thank you, mate. And yeah, I wish you all the best for the future. Guys, like and subscribe if you'd be so kind. Get in the comments and let me know what you think. Homebrew. This is, some homebrews are terrible. I can assure you this is not. It's going to be a very interesting journey. I think if we go back to Malta in 3 or 4 years' time, I think this guy will be everywhere. Like and subscribe, guys, if you'd be so kind. I will see you on the next one. Cheers.